will admit, though, some of that sheathing was gorgeous.
Oh, the boards, I'm sure.
18 inches. I think some of them were 18 inches
Were you
wide.
tempted to save any of it?
No, not even. that thought didn't even, cross my mind at all.
Welcome to the Fine Home Building Podcast. It's our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. I'm Justin Fink, and I'll be your host. Brian is on the road, so today we have editorial director Rob Yagid and associate editor Patrick McCombe. Gentlemen.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, Justin.
Hello. Before we get going, a reminder on all the ways you can stay connected to us. You can send us questions about your projects, ideas for discussion, or suggestions for future guests by sending an email to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. I read every email personally. I would love to hear from you. We have show notes for this and every episode of the Fine Home Building Podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast, where you can also watch a video version of this broadcast. We're doing video right now. There's a little TV behind me, and we've got some electrical, slab, and structural questions today, which we'll be showing photos for. But before we get to those, I'm hoping that Rob can catch us up a little bit, because he has been hard at work on his, we're calling it an attic remodel? Is that the best way? Working on your roof.
I guess so. Yeah, we could call it the attic remodel.
When we last spoke,
I haven't been on the podcast in a while.
Yeah, well,
So a lot of time has passed, seemingly.
it moves on without you.
Yeah, I know.
And last week you were
I've
off
been
the
listening.
whole week, right? Working on it?
I think you missed 3 episodes at least.
Yeah, I was traveling for the magazine for a couple weeks there, and then we had the 4th of July week. And then I took off after 4th of July.
So where are you at?
I've made some good progress. I think the last time...
Give us a run.
where we got.
What's the overall scope of this thing?
So, do I have to, how far back do I have to go?
You got to catch me up
All right.
on,
If you haven't listened to the podcast yet,
unless
I've got...
you can reference podcast numbers where you explain, then I want the full rundown.
I don't know the numbers.
We
I know,
should
that's
catch
what
people
I'm
up anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a small 1940s cape that I'm currently remodeling the second floor. The plan is to so the original condition was that half the upstairs was unfinished attic space. There was a small bedroom up there. I've demoed that small bedroom, and so now the place is essentially gutted. You can see in the photo over Justin's shoulder there. Demoed that.
Or online at finehomebuilding.com/podcast.
Yes. Raised the ceiling to kind of a conventional 8-foot ceiling height because it just had some scabbed together rafter ties that were super sketchy and sagging to about 6 feet. So raised the ceiling height, and then I'm putting 3 dormers across the front of the house in order to eventually finish that upstairs space with a new bedroom, master bedroom with a walk-in closet and a new... Did I say master bathroom?
I don't know.
Master
Fine,
bedroom, walk-in closet, and bathroom upstairs.
Cool.
So last week, I've been doing a lot of work on the interior to get it ready for ripping the roof and framing up the dormers. And bright and early, 4th of July, I ripped the roof.
On 4th of July?
On 4th of July. Oh, yeah.
God bless America.
God bless America. So step one was to rip that roof. And I wasn't really sure how it would go. I thought that there were 2 layers up there. Because, you could look at a gable end and you kind of get a sense of how many layers of roofing there are, But I still wasn't sure. I was going to do this thing solo. I wasn't going to make my father work or my brothers or my friends work on 4th of July and help me out.
You're missing a great opportunity for people who aren't working.
So why didn't you just go up there with a ladder and peel back a shingle and see how many layers you had before you started? I guess it didn't matter because you were going to tear it off one way or the other.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. This goes back to that same thing where you didn't know what your siding looked like underneath your vinyl. I'm like, why don't you just lift up one of the pieces of vinyl and look? There was like all this endless speculation about what the siding looked like.
Yeah, and I did.
You like to do things the hard way.
I did, and I ripped off like, I don't know, a chunk of that vinyl and then put it back on.
It's not that bad.
Not that bad.
First of all, you threw it away and then bought more vinyl to replace what you threw away.
That's right. So very quickly discovered that I didn't have 2 layers of roof of asphalt shingles on my roof. I had 3.
Nice.
So immediately was pretty bummed out. And it just took forever for me to rip that roof.
So how many guys up there?
How many guys?
How many guys did you have?
How many guys?
It was just you?
Me.
You didn't have anybody helping you?
Nobody. No. That's why it took me forever.
Wait, so how many guys?
1.
What are you, insane?
So 3 layers of shingles.
And you're scraping these off with one
of those roof ripper shovel, kind of, like with the,
Yeah, but he's got board sheathing.
And I've got board sheathing.
Oh man, that's such a
so it's
such
4
a
inches.
drag.
So
4 inches and hard stop.
Yeah, hard stop. Yeah, you just catch every edge of the board. You're pulling up framing nails, all that good stuff.
Ask Patrick about the
Here's the
the
kicker.
roof shingles with the wire.
So
I've never heard of that.
So here's the kicker. 3 layers of shingles. Roofs that I've ripped before, and it's a 9.5 pitch. So I've only ripped maybe 4 other roofs, and when you're working with a group of guys, you kind of work together, and you can kind of let gravity help you to a degree, and things start to slough off, roll it off, and get it.
Yeah.
That's not happening on this roof. Mm-hmm. You would pop all the shingles, and they would just sit there, because there's just so much weight. But I think it had the original layer of asphalt shingles, but not all of the shingles were fastened this way, but a significant portion of them had a strip of 3 nails that were wired together. So with essentially baling wire around the shank beneath the nail head. And I'd not seen that before. And I'm just wondering, in the 40s, if they just sold a box of these strips, these kind of 3 nail strips that you just kind of laid out and
you
hammered
think it's
into
meant
place.
to increase its blow-off resistance, like washers?
Maybe.
Or are they just for some reason grouping nails together?
have
You
no
need 3
idea.
per shingle?
Yeah,
so
maybe it would just be easier and faster.
I can't imagine. How would you carry them?
I don't know.
Maybe someone will write to us and say they've
So it
seen
was
that.
really
I'd never heard
sweet.
that.
It was really sweet to be able to pop 1 nail and have it not matter because it's wired to 2 others.
That's got to be one of the most heinous jobs going to begin
Yeah.
with, right? And anything that makes it more complicated.
Were all
worse.
3 layers 3 tab, or did you have architectural on top?
I had 3 tab on top of it was the second layer. I think they were all 3 tab.
Okay.
Yeah. It was one of those moments where I think I made a mistake. It was I got that quote for, having the roof ripped and redone and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I could save some money and I could use those savings to put into, other parts of the remodel. And it just, I don't know. I think Justin could kind of sympathize where you think that it makes sense to do everything yourself all the time.
It's all a great idea until you get up there with that first, and you slide that roof rake into that first patch, and you go, "What did I just do?"
Yeah, I just battle.
This is not going to be easy.
I just battle with that, what to hire people for and what not to.
Sure.
The go-to is not to hire anybody for anything ever.
Right.
Whether it's your car, whether it's mowing your lawn or
and to be
working on
fair,
your house.
you're not running a business. This is your own house.
Yeah.
You're kind of working on it nights and weekends.
Yeah.
You're not running. I mean, if you would never do it yourself if you were remodeling this attic for a customer.
No way.
Because you never make any money. But
On the other hand is I've got really limited time to do this work too.
Right. And now your roof is off.
Yeah. So that took all day, and then pretty much another day. My wife's
Recovery.
My wife's a rock star because she was helping loading the dumpster because I just ripped everything off and then loaded it.
Yep.
So it's essentially 2 days to rip this roof and get it kind of squared away. And I had to tarp it that night or those 2 nights before I could get synthetic underlayment on the roof.
It has underlayment on it now.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Well, it has underlayment and dormers on it now.
Mm-hmm.
so you went synthetic.
So I went synthetic because just for exposure, cap fasteners,
What brand did you use?
IKO.
Oh, okay.
Did you find it less slippery than felt? Because I've heard can be the case or not necessarily, depending on what brand you
It was
choose.
pretty. It's pretty kind of non-slip, I guess.
Seems like if you're going to go the trouble of getting it, why would you not want the one that's also non-slip?
Right.
Yeah.
Why?
There was a pretty wild price difference, I will say,
Between products?
between products that were available at the lumberyard that I went to.
Could you see samples and tell what the difference was?
I'm sure I could have, but I didn't. Like one was double the price.
Are you sure you're comparing apples to apples in terms of square footage?
There you go. I don't know roll to roll.
Those rolls are pretty small. They don't look like a lot.
It's like, what,
'cause it's
5 foot
thin.
wide?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah. So anyway, I was able to get the synthetic underlayment on and got poured on. And fortunately, I was surprised that it kind of stayed relatively weather tight. I mean, I had some holes that I had punched through because I had some cleats down, so I could walk that roof. I had fall protection on. Justin and I were talking about that.
Yeah, your first real experience with it, right?
Admittedly, that was my first real experience with fall protection.
Well,
and it's like a no-brainer. Like, I couldn't have ripped that roof without it.
So
It's inexpensive. You could buy a whole everything that you need. Essentially, you could buy for $100. You know, it has like the anchor that you
So you bought
nail
this
to the
like
ridge.
one of these buckets of things?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk about that real quick because there's a lot of options there, and we've talked about whether to cover this in the magazine. But so you had the type that basically has one anchor point, which you locate in, I'm guessing, in the center of the ridge, mid ridge,
Yeah. Yep.
and then you just the rope will be as long as you. How long is the rope that it comes with?
25 feet, I think.
Okay.
It's not an ultra long rope. I'm sure you could get others. You know what I mean? But it
Is
comes
it like
with
a poly rope, or is it? It's like that
yeah. It's
plasticky
super.
stuff that gives you the splinters.
No,
Oh, okay.
didn't. I think it's
Okay.
polypropylene maybe, but it's really beefy. Comes with a harness and a lanyard with at the end of the lanyard, which you attach your harness to the rope with it, with an ascender. So essentially, like, you could shimmy, you could ascend, but you can't descend. You know,
Right.
it locks. You need to press like this clip in order to kind of back down the roof. So that's what stops you from falling.
Okay. And can you actually can you feed rope through it as you're backing down? Like, can you put some pressure on it as if you're almost like rappelling down the roof?
Yeah, you can, but you need to have your hand on it and you need to have it open.
Right, but it's not like
No,
you can control the friction a little bit.
little bit.
Okay.
But you really have to hold on to the rope while you're descending, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like.
No.
I think that's what Justin was
Yeah,
asking.
'cause, I mean, if it
no,
was
no,
like
no.
in terms of rock climbing, which we've done a lot of, you can sort of lean back and ride the resistance of the rope as you're
Yeah.
backing down the roof.
No, it's not like
which I would
that.
think would be pretty nice. Sure, you could rig up your own stuff using a gree and a and a rope and some carabiners, but
Yeah, no, it's not like that. It's
and it attaches to your back in this case, right?
yeah. I know some harnesses you could attach to your hips.
Yeah, that sounds so. That's how we got on the topic, because Patrick was talking about the versions that have a cable that goes from one end of the ridge to the other, so you can kind of slide along that big long cable in order to reach other parts of the
I think
roof.
it's more like a 1-inch rope. But yeah.
Oh, it's a rope, it's
yeah,
not a cable?
It's not a cable. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of this stuff. And
Yeah.
I know some of the lanyards are cables and they're self-retracting, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
The guys I saw in Ligonier had several anchor points, like probably 5 or 6, maybe 8 feet apart all along the ridge, because they were doing a metal roof that was 12 pitch. And they had to use the ropes to actually be on the roof to install it. And that was pretty cool to see. They had harnesses that had...
So what you're saying is they were actually using the ropes to help support them,
Yeah,
hold
so
them in
there's
place.
they explained it to me. There's 2 kinds of harnesses. You have fall arrest harnesses and positioning harnesses. A positioning harness will also keep you from falling off the roof, but a fall arrest harness is really not meant to hold you on the roof because the hook is on the back, which is not the best place for working on a steep site.
Unless you're working on the eave.
Yeah, or something, or yeah. And so they had these positioning harnesses that had hooks on the both sides, like at their hips, and then one in the back at the top, more like a fall arrest harness. But they would use the lanyards clipped to a line with the rope grab, like Rob was describing, that allows you to move on the rope and have the lanyard be at the right length, so it'll actually keep you from hitting the ground.
Right. I would think, though, that having the auto retract would be really nice, because I imagine that as soon as you have something in your hands, like a bundle of shingles, you're not going to be able to
Hold on to the rope.
easily feed
Yeah.
pull that rope through as you're going up towards the ridge.
Yeah, there's limitations. Like, for instance, we talked about this, and I'll admit it, but when it came to the framing of the dormers, the type of harness that I had was kind of ineffective. I mean, it wouldn't have been ineffective to stop a fall, but you just wouldn't be able to work.
Because it would get caught on everything?
It would get caught on everything, and then, I was inside and outside, so often that to clip, unclip, it would have taken twice, 3 times as long. You know what I mean? So I had fall protection.
Twice, 3 times as long.
I had roof jacks, staging. What I should mention is that I built 4 of those kind of A-frame.
Oh, yeah. I didn't bring up I didn't pull up a picture of those.
Yeah, you might be able to see it in that Well, you kind of see it.
Well, we can throw.
Oh, there you go. We could talk about this, but I had to vent my eave, which had been unvented. But step 1 on this whole project was to build these some A-frame staging that I had seen in the magazine a while ago.
Mike Girton did them.
Yeah, Mike Girton did them.
Years and years ago,
Yeah,
right?
you simply, they're 8 foot tall. You build them with...
Brian shot that article.
Did he?
I think he was back when he was a Cubby reporter.
Yeah. So you can knock these things together for about $40 to $50 each. And they're super dirt simple, made from 1x material and 2x4s. And they are, they kind of have 4 rungs on them. You could kind of make them so they're folding, so they're relatively lightweight. But I made 4 of them and just threw some planks across each, so I could walk from one end of the house easily and safely.
They're awesome.
They're awesome. They're great.
They're so. I've made them a bunch of times. You can make them either fixed or so they fold up and store away.
Yep. They're really cheap.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did not get scaffolding planks, but
I didn't.
you're supposed to.
You
I
are
know
supposed
that.
to. Rated scaffolding planks.
Isn't it great when you're doing stuff for yourself because you can ignore all those rules?
Yep.
All the OSHA rules and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like about those is that they're wide.
Yeah.
So you can have a couple of planks edge to edge
Sure.
and really comfortably walk around. I would use them too when I was doing my garage roof. I would carry the bundles from the pallet on my shoulder, throw them up onto the planks and get a few of them up there, and then climb up onto the planks and then transfer them up onto the staging on the roof and stack them there, so I wouldn't have to go up a ladder carrying the bundles.
Why didn't you get the roofing company to put them up on the roof?
Because I didn't order them from a roofing company.
Yeah, Mike uses these for everything from, you could use them as a workbench, so they're cool and handy to have around. You probably still have the set that you made,
I have
right?
a bunch, yeah. I used them. You can probably see them in the porch article we just did.
Oh, yeah.
I used them for that.
Yeah, they're cool. So yeah, we'll throw up a link to that article because it has a very simple plan for you to knock these things together.
Yeah, it's not like they're complicated, but there are some
nuances.
Nuances, like if you buy it's like when you're making sawhorses, like you buy the right size lumber and it gives you all the parts you need without any real waste.
Part of the design here is that the rungs are made out of 1x material
to make them lighter, I presume.
To make them lighter, and you buy a 1x8, rip it down to 1x6, and use that ripping as a kind of a support along each leg of the staging to support that rung. So just like little things like that you might not think about that's in the plan set. So it's cool.
That's cool.
Did you have any trouble leveling them?
They weren't dead level, but no, not really. I was able to kind of dig down and use some offcuts and stuff like that to
when I've been doing
them.
stuff that's more rough, I actually have put them right alongside the house and actually just screwed them right to the structure. So like one long timber lock screw through the A-frame into the structure, and it's like basically locking your 2 scaffolds to the building.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I staked some of like the legs.
That's a good idea.
And screwed the bottom of the leg to the stake.
That's a good idea.
And I also put just a spreader, at the A
To keep
just
them
to keep them
folding
from
up.
folding up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess you could use a rope or a chain or whatever, but I just had some scrap laying around. But
Yeah, that's only for pretty pictures. Rope, come on.
yeah, come on.
That sheathing looks
Wonky.
Oh, dude, that must have been such a pain to strip that roof.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's
Some
talk
of,
about your venting.
some of the. I will admit though, some of that sheathing was gorgeous.
Oh, the boards, I'm sure.
18 inches. I think some of them were 18 inches
Were
wide.
you tempted to save any of it?
No, not even. that thought didn't even, cross my mind at all. But I know that Justin would be like, I should probably just rip this board out, replace it with some
Some plywood.
and
Absolutely.
Make a table.
and make a table.
Absolutely.
So are you going to reskin that before you shingle it again?
No.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. So
You're worried about him having no place to sink the nails?
Yeah, because every once in a while you're going to end up like with nails with nowhere to go, and you'll just have to try again.
Sure, you don't want to use this as a chance to put some foam down on that roof.
No, not doing that. So what you're looking at right now over, this is kind of funny because you can see the gap that was created to allow airflow into beneath the roof deck. And there's already those little prop vents.
Yeah, I see that.
So those were installed at some point.
All right, so let me explain since...
Yeah, good. Back
all
it
right,
up.
so but we can't see the photo here behind us. Basically, if you're looking at the eave of the house, the sub fascia goes up, and then before the roof deck starts, the roof deck is held up the slope a little bit, so there's a little bit of gap at the bottom. And that way, air can come up and underneath the roof deck and then up the proper vents.
Yep.
You know, up the rafter bays and out the... Did you even have a ridge vent?
No.
Yeah.
So there had been...
It's the prop vents to nowhere.
They had, prop vents to nowhere. And so as part of this work, I had to add venting. And that's kind of difficult to do on a house like a Cape that has no overhang. And so what I've done was I just, removed the gutter. I actually pulled off, I've got vinyl siding, so they often add like a 2x sub fascia and wrap it in coil stock. So I was able to remove that metal and kind of right here I had to chamfer the edge a bit just because as you'll see the plane of the roof would kind of capture because I've got a kind of a wavy roof would kind of come a little bit too close to that subfascia. So just to ensure airflow up and over that subfascia into the vents, which I'll replace. But in order to vent a roof without an overhang, my plan is to kind of just pad out the fascia a bit. And I'm doing that with some 1x material and using CoraVent S400 venting, which is kind of like this a comb, essentially, polypropylene or ethylene comb.
It looks like corrugated cardboard stacked.
Yeah, as my intake.
Same material they use for making plastic signs.
Yeah.
Like those lawn signs for your whatever lawn
Open
company,
house.
open
Yeah.
house, yeah.
And so that's my intake, and then I just applied a PVC fascia over that and hit it, and then the gutter will be reattached, and that gap above will just be. I just had to extend. I had to get the extra wide drip edge to cover that gap. So that's all buttoned up, and I was able to get ice and water over it. Of course, came back to. Does the drip edge go under or over?
What'd you do?
What'd you do?
Over. So
You put the drip edge over the underlayment.
Correct.
I think that's what most people would tell you to do.
Yes, I believe that's might be code, but so the ice and water comes out
so
over,
confident, right, Jeff?
The ice and water comes out over and actually adheres to the fascia, and then the drip cap goes onto it. And the logic behind that is that when an ice dam forms in your gutter, and will back up underneath that drip cap, it'll hit the ice and water. As if you had the drip cap underneath the ice and water, and any of that backup that happens in the gutter, it's going to get up underneath the drip edge and essentially hit your framing. So that's why they want you to kind of reverse it. It doesn't make sense though. I mean, seemingly.
The lab
seems, yeah, but that's the intent. So there's that.
I bet you were tired.
Are you putting gutters in this sucker?
Yes.
By the way, you didn't mention that core vent is white, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, so you can get
A lot of people don't think that's available. So
CoraVent is available. So this CoraVent product is available in white, black, or brown.
I really like the way you detailed this. This is a really cool setup.
I'll try to get a picture.
I want to see from below.
There was something beautiful about being able to kind of wake up at or get going at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and not having your phone on you, not having work, just putting the tool belts on and going to work. So I actually have very few photos of this work. But I do I'll take a picture of what this venting setup looks like because it's super discreet. You almost can't tell that it's there. And the beauty of this is that the vent intake is coming up from the bottom. It'll be protected by the gutter and the overhang. So some of the other options for venting a roof like this is to either get vented drip edge,
right,
which is just going to clog when it gets full of snow and ice, or what Justin has spoken about in the past is that you could actually get intakes that actually go up onto the roof deck, like maybe a foot or so. But those are again, they don't look right, and they're going to get backed up.
Yeah, I would
with
worry
snow.
about snow backing up in there.
Yeah, so this intake is completely protected from the weather.
I wonder if you should have put some screen material on that core vent though to keep little bugs out.
I mean, it's no different than any other intake.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people put screen around those other intakes.
Like over
Oh,
it?
you mean for roofing? I was thinking about this is the same stuff people use for rain screens. What you essentially have here is the very bottom of a ventilated rain screen.
Yeah.
Because you have little furring strips.
Yeah.
And then a vent with a skirt board over it. But in your case, the skirt board is a fascia.
Yeah. Maybe I should put some screens.
It's too late now.
I could do it on the inside, on the interior. I mean, they're still going to get up into the fascia, but they're not going to get into the up under the roof deck and into.
Once they're
attic.
in, they're in.
Yeah, that's true.
That's it.
Okay. So
You think you should put plywood down the deck?
I think you should burn it down.
No, I mean,
the house is already burned
would
twice
you
before.
would you put decking down on twice?
I believe there's been a fire twice in my house.
Wow.
No one will suspect a thing there.
Would you put down something?
Yeah,
Why would you put something down?
because I've done that and it sucks holistically.
But I mean, tell me why.
What is your concern? The gap between the boards or the waviness of the boards?
No, it's just nailing down shingles and trying to find solid purchase with board sheathing, especially when it's old and ungrade stamped. I'm sure it's just there's a lot of holes and there's a lot of gaps between boards that getting them nailed down without a lot of fuss is a big pain. And if you're using a nail gun, you sometimes don't even know if you miss. So that's
Okay. Well, there's not going to be plywood going down, so see how it goes.
So stubborn, Rob, and grouchy.
I'm not grouchy.
like I said, I've done it. So
Would you put foam down, Patrick?
boy, that's another question.
Wouldn't
I
have
don't
made
know.
sense.
I don't know if it would look right on Rob's cape, right? Because then how do you deal with the new fascia and extended deck, right? Raised deck.
You can make it work. You just got to make that.
It's a very different
Eve look good.
It's a very different assembly. I mean, all right, now you're going to get into an unvented roof, and I don't like the idea of it.
And it's expensive, right? To buy that much polyiso.
There's that,
Yeah.
and then to detail the eaves and the rakes and all that kind of stuff. It starts to, yeah,
All right. You want to do some questions?
yeah. Let's jump into some
You can
questions.
update us next week on how far you get
Looks good, man.
between now and then. It does look good, though.
Oh yeah, the framing, yeah, but the framing is rather conventional dormer framing. Oh, one thing I want to poke Patrick on this a little bit is I didn't realize. I guess I don't buy like sheathing all the time, but I didn't realize that zip. So when I ordered the sheathing from the lumber yard, I just spec'd 1/2 inch zip sheathing, assuming that it was going to be green. And when I got to the lumber yard, I go out to the yard, and they're like, "All right, here's your 1/2 inch it's orange face," and I was like, "Isn't that 5/8?" And they're like, "No, it's 1/2 inch."
It's meant for roofs, right?
And I was like, I'm confused. I was like, I ordered, but what they make now is green face zip, 7/16.
It's been like this for years, by the way.
I know. Orange face zip, which is 1/2 inch, and then orange face zip, which is 5/8. I don't think they make anything else, do they? But they cost. There's a cost difference. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, whatever. So I had to exchange it because I got the 7/16 one because I already had some of the material there, and I could save a few bucks. But yeah, again, I'm not like day-to-day buying sheathing. I didn't realize that zip came in those increments, and why? Why is 7/16 and 1/2 inch?
It's so it used to be that the brown panel was the roof,
Yeah.
and the green panel was the wall.
Keep it simple.
And it was very simple. And then you would see every once in a while a house that was all brown because,
They
like
went
in a
a 1/2
high wind
inch.
zone, they went 5/8 on the whole house
Yeah.
or whatever. But then they changed it a few years ago, and and there's like this whole like zip system product line is designed to streamline work, blah blah blah. 3 panel thicknesses, light choose the strength. Panels are also conveniently color coded with the 7/16 panel colored green and the thicker 1/2 inch and 5/8 colored sienna, making it easy to spot the right panel for the job. But I feel like it got more confusing.
It did. Why? I'm just.
I don't get why, but
And why have the 7/16 and the 1/2 inch?
I think some people just want 1/2 inch.
well, yeah, 1/2
And
inch.
7/16 is a rated sheathing
Sure.
panel, but somebody wants 1/2 inch, or if they're marrying up to
Right.
something
Yeah, yeah.
existing, then you
Okay.
get 1/2 inch.
I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
1/2 inch for my house because I had 1/2 inch
Yeah.
on the walls already.
Makes sense.
It wouldn't seem like it would make that much difference, but it sure does show.
There is something we're missing about how this change didn't happen for no reason. There's got to be
Oh, no,
something.
I
just don't know what it is.
For sure.
We'll find out.
They're not that kind of company to just randomly do stuff.
Framing looks good though. I want to do some framing. I want to come over and do those dormers.
Patrick and I were just doing. We had Max Tools in this week, and they had their new compressor and some of their
High pressure
their
nailers.
high pressure nailers, and it was like, oof,
So nice.
that would have been nice.
So it's a framing nailer that's about the size of a siding nailer, and still, drives 3.5-inch nails.
Yeah.
Right. It's like we were talking about with the palm nailers last week. You make a framing nailer running on typical.
It's 500 psi. I think.
Right. It needs to have, well, a regular framing nailer
100
has to
PSI.
have.
Right.
No, the
I'm saying
traditional was 100.
Oh yeah.
A traditional one is 100, but it has that huge body
Cylinder,
to it
yeah.
so that you can have that mass of air. But if you go to a higher pressure, you can go to a smaller gun.
Because it has more air in there under high
Right.
pressure. Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah.
Not inexpensive, but super cool.
But they've had that for years too. So what's different with the new system?
It costs less for one.
So they're refining it.
Yeah, I think they're trying to make it more widely adopted. That's a very rare thing.
Yeah.
Because, who wants to spend $1,500 on a compressor and then have to buy new nail guns to use with it?
Right. Especially if you're a whole crew of.
What's cool about the Max high pressure rig is that it also has outlets for your conventional 100 PSI tools, so you can use it for both without any adapters or messing around.
Apparently, the guys on the Pro Home Build right now are using that platform, and
Oh, I'm sure they love it.
yeah, they're not giving the tools back.
Well, the compressor, it weighs 47 pounds or something like that. It's super quiet.
Super quiet. Yeah, it's a quiet mode.
Yeah,
it's
and-
crazy, and a
and
big
it's-
5.8 gallon, right?
Yeah, it was
capacity.
5 aluminum tanks.
Yeah.
They're real slim. Oh, it's super nice.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful machine.
They're a podcast sponsor coming up soon.
Are they?
They are.
Oh, cool. Well, Patrick's going to review that stuff coming up. We've already kind of
they've-
tried to arrange
They
some
said
product
the end
testing.
of August they will have units available for us to get out in the field for somebody to test.
Cool.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Steve writes, "Hi guys, love the show, and I'm hoping you can help me out with an electrical question. I want to upgrade the power to my detached garage. Right now, it's just a run of Romex from the basement through some buried conduit and into the wall of the garage where it branches off for the lights, garage doors, etc. I want to set up a shop in there, so I need more juice. I'm getting a little lost in the options of conduit, or if I even need it, and questioning whether it's okay to substitute copper wiring for what appears to be a drastically less expensive aluminum. With such a difference in price, there must be some huge catch, right? Thanks for any help. Thanks in advance for any help you can offer."
Oh,
Yeah, you
I'm
guys.
all over this.
You
'cause
guys
I've
are
done
the,
this. And
yeah.
I've
You
done
guys
it
are
more
the
than once.
ideal
Yeah.
guys to respond because Justin, you have a detached garage that
Yep.
you've made a pretty terrific workshop, and
About
Patrick.
to reorganize it again.
Oh,
you
there
missed
go.
that.
Remodel the remodel.
That's August, baby. Gonna puke that garage and redo it.
And Patrick, you built a rather large barn 2 years ago.
That was longer than that.
Or was
I
it
think it's
longer than
been
3?
4 or 5
4?
now.
What,
my goodness.
what do you have out there for power?
100 amps.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Did you do aluminum?
No. And
went copper.
I'll say why.
So answer
hear
the, yeah.
it.
Through
here's-
your experience, answer this
Here's
Jeff's
the
question.
thing: is for starters, the copper wire is much smaller in diameter, as everyone will attest, right? Which makes it
Correct.
way easier to get in your panel and route it. The other big thing is, so you're going to need a 100 amp breaker in my case, or I don't know how big a service this gentleman is planning, but you're going to need to put a breaker in there that's going to supply the power to the sub panel, right? Getting one with lugs big enough to accommodate aluminum wire is very difficult. So you're going to have to end up putting a sub panel to feed your sub panel if you want to use aluminum wire. So oftentimes it's just better to buy, a 50 or 100 amp breaker that will accept the diameter of copper wire and use that, which saves a lot of work. And once you get to the sub panel end, having the smaller copper wire is a huge benefit too, because it takes up less room. It's easier to work. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to bend aluminum
hard.
SE cable or whatever, but it's super thick and hard to work with.
But I would imagine that you would go with individual strands of cable, not individual strands, but individual cables rather than
Individual wires instead of a cable.
Well,
So if you do that, you have to run it in conduit. And
is
I would
it still
also
considered a cable when it's an individual aluminum because even individual aluminum is
I think they call them conductors or a cable.
conductors. That would be the term I'm looking for. Showing my ignorance.
So
Can you clarify what you're talking about?
Well,
what do you mean?
Well,
Are you talking about running the aluminum conductors from your main panel to
an aluminum conductor is not a single fat piece of aluminum. It's
Right.
smaller strands of aluminum
Stranded.
twisted together.
Yeah.
So let's take a piece of Romex, which is a brand name for non-metallic sheathed cable. It's the yellow jacketed, white jacketed stuff everybody has in their house running through their walls. That's a cable. If you slice that sheathing, the jacket off of that cable, then you have conductors inside. And each of those conductors is a certain size. So if it's 12 amp 12 gauge Romex, then 12 is smaller than 10, but bigger than 14. So higher the number, smaller the wire. So
the other question was conduit or...
Well, hold on. We didn't even... I love when Patrick can't wait to answer. So the other thing to consider is that, like, when you have incoming cable to your house for power, it's called a service entrance cable. It's usually that big, fat, gray jacketed thing that you buy it that way.
That's a cable.
That's a cable. And it has smaller jacketed conductors inside, which they're freaking huge conductors. Caught myself there. So that is different than... So they do make cables that you can direct bury, right? But you can also just run a conduit and then snake individual conductors through that conduit. So for the case of a subpanel, you're going to need 4 conductors.
Yes.
You need to have 2 hots,
a neutral
and a ground.
An equipment ground.
Yeah. So it's often easier through a conduit to have 4 separate conductors because it's easier to snake them than it is to snake that huge honkin' all-in-one cable.
Would that alleviate his concern about when you actually have to tie it into the subpanel?
No, because what he's saying is that... So let's now we can address that. If you use, let's say for copper, one example is for copper, if you have a 200 amp panel, you have to use 2-aught, which it's written as 2/0. If you ever see that, it's pronounced 2-aught cable, 2-aught conductor. So that'll handle a 200 amp service. If you want to do it in aluminum instead of copper, it's 4-aught. So it's twice as big.
Yeah.
And obviously, when we're not talking about a 200 amp garage here. Well, so let's say it's like 60, which, Jeff, we throw up a picture. I found this. We actually have done this question in the magazine, and I'm saying 60 because that was what we used as the example for that. It should be at the end of the list, Jeff. And for that example, the conductors, you can see when you get down to smaller conductors, the size difference becomes less drastic. It's thicker and it's stiffer, but it's minimized, right? It's a lot harder to bend a huge service entrance aluminum cable than it is to bend a lot smaller individual conductors.
Absolutely.
So some of that is alleviated. But what Patrick is talking about is that the conductor is still bigger, and if a breaker is not intended to have, it only can fit such a size conductor. So
Gotcha.
if the conductor you need is bigger than it can accept, it causes problems. Although I would question, can we even still make the claim that, like, it's harder to find stuff at this point? Like, can we just go on Amazon and get the breaker that's designed to work with it and it'll be here tomorrow?
No, because it's generally not offered by the panel manufacturer, right?
Okay, so it's harder to find. It's that it might not even exist.
It might not exist because it physically cannot fit.
Right.
So I would definitely consider that. And when he asked about running it in a conduit versus direct burial, I talked a lot and considered running mine directly underground.
Yeah.
But I was cautioned against that because I have sandy soils. And since electrical cables only have to be buried, I think it's 18 inches down, right? You have frost action, and the frost action moves around rocks and stuff, and it can abrade the cable, and eventually it's going to fail. So I was cautioned not to do that, and I listened. And honestly, it's not that hard to run the pipe. And I actually ran the cables as I laid the pipe, so I didn't have to get a big honking pulling machine or struggle with running the cable. I would just stick it through the pipe, put it in the ground, stick on another piece of pipe, push it through, and work my way to the panel, and it worked
Right,
great.
yeah. It's people underestimate how
it's physically very hard.
Very hard. Although there's, what was it? Was it Andy that was talking about this with us, Patrick? Where he's seen guys put something into the conduit
And you suck a string
and
through.
you suck a string through with a
Yeah.
vacuum because
Yeah.
I mean you're sucking on a tube. It has an amazing amount of suction,
And then you use the string to pull a rope,
still
and then you
pulling it.
pull the rope.
but you're still pulling the sucker.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Is this all
I-
jiving with what you've done or what you intend
Well,
to do?
see, yes, it is driving what I intend to do. I intend to use aluminum, because we're talking drastically cheaper. Like I don't have actual dollars. And
So
cents
you're not taking Patrick's advice.
No, I'm doing a conduit. He's talking about doing a conduit. Well, we got before we even got into this, we should have backed up and said that aluminum cable is approved for use by the National Electric Code, but your local inspector might not let you use it anyway. So that's step one.
I don't think that's going to be true. But
Yes, in a lot of places you can't.
really?
Yeah.
It seems weird because it's allowed by the code.
Yeah.
You do have to treat the ends because it has a greater likelihood of corrosion, which would create arcing and poor conductivity. So you have to put this material on the wire, the conductors, before you put them in, connecting terminals, so they
What's that
don't
stuff
corrode.
called?
No locks.
Yeah. According to Brian Wallow, who's an electrician we used to work with, I found this kind of interesting. He said it doesn't. It's not that it corrodes more than copper, because copper corrodes too. The difference is that the corrosion on copper is conductive,
Interesting.
and the corrosion on aluminum is not.
Neat.
And he also pointed out that the reason why he was saying, Brian's the kind of guy who answers questions that you didn't even know you didn't even think to ask. And he's like, and the reason why you can't use aluminum wiring in your walls, and I'm like, I didn't even think of that, but okay, what is the reason? He goes, because it expands and contracts a lot more with changes in temperature, and the concern is that it will pull out of connections and loosen connections as it moves a lot. For some reason, this is not a concern
With copper.
when it's huge. When you have a huge service entrance cable, I don't know. Maybe that's why they have those crazy like torque requirements that you have to crank down on when you put service entrance cable in with the main lugs and all that stuff. But
Yep.
so yeah, what Patrick is saying correct. So you have to coat the ends of this stuff with this anti-corrosive goop to keep your connections from suffering. But my plan was to use individual conductors run through a PVC conduit right from the basement main panel, across the basement ceiling, out the wall, through the conduit, and into the garage, into a sub panel.
That's what I did.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to do 100 amps either. I was probably going to do 60 maybe. So, I don't know. We'll see how hard it is to actually pull those small conductors. I don't expect it's going to be a problem because I put in nice long sweeps, and they're pretty small conductors. What was the other thing I was going to say? It's also that aluminum is a lot lighter, and a lot of electricians like to work with it because of that. So
Cool.
that's that.
The big tip with working with aluminum is if you're trying to make a tight bend and you find it's difficult to do with your hands, is to use a box end wrench on the conductor and you bend it and use that as a lever, which I thought was a great idea. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, so you run it through.
So you stick the conductor through the box end wrench and you use the box end wrench as a lever to bend the
Does it have to be sized to just slide over the cable, or just any size?
Any size.
Yeah,
As long as it's big enough to accept the conductor.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use 2 watt, you're going to want a 7/16 inch wrench, I think. Maybe 9/16. Don't use 14 millimeter because that just screws everything up.
It doesn't
The
work
electrons
with
will
metric,
not go through it later.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna throw the link up to that Brian Wallow where he answered that.
That was a good question.
That's a great question. It's probably the only electrical question that I would actually feel comfortable answering. So I'm glad we got it. All right, Will writes, "Hello, gents. I've been working on a 280-year-old Bucks County, Pennsylvania farmhouse. That's how you have to say it for 4 years, and the work never ends."
I love this guy.
Yeah. I'm redoing everything with high-quality materials and trying to make it last a few more centuries. Unfortunately, the previous owners never cared for rain gutters on the north side of the house, so all 24 floor joists rotted where they went into the 18-inch thick stone walls at grade level. So what we're looking at here is basically floor joists that tuck into pockets in the stone foundation instead of sitting on top of it, When the floor started sagging in the 1950s, the previous owner put up some vertical supports in the basement, but those have rotted into the dirt floor too. When I bought the house, I put up a temporary substructure and somehow ended up underpinning half the house and digging out the basement instead of doing CrossFit classes. So my current debacle is how to support the first floor for generations to come. Ideas have ranged from timber or metal support structures, mortise joists stubbing into the old joist cavities, all the way to ripping everything out, putting up steel, and pouring a concrete first floor. What? What would you guys recommend besides sell the place? Thanks for your advice and putting together a great show.
This house is beautiful, by the way.
It is a beautiful
So
house. Is that a
definitely-
slate roof on there? And do you think that's his backhoe?
Can we borrow it?
It's a nice house.
I
Yeah,
want
it's
a backhoe.
gorgeous.
So you shouldn't put the wood joist back in the masonry. I think anyone would tell you that that's a straight ticket to rot.
What about if you protected the ends of the joists? What if
Well,
you
that
wrapped
might
them?
help, but like, how are they still long enough, right? Anyway, because they've been rotting in those beam
Well, he'd
pockets
he'd have to replace the joists.
So I think I would put a stud wall underneath them.
Stay on that mic, man.
I think I would put a stud wall underneath.
dig a proper footing.
Yeah,
And you think that
Stud wall or a beam?
a stud wall,
just with the stud under each joist? It's not a
or
direct
just
load path?
16-inch centers, just like you'd build a structural wall with
And
a
you would
double top
have
plate.
and you would have like a footing, like a full length kind of trench footing.
Yeah, I mean-
beneath that stud wall.
As long
It's
as-
only floor load. It's not wall and roof load, so it's not going to be very big.
Right. Well, unless, yes, you're right. Ideally,
Oh yeah,
in normal
because
circumstances,
stone.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Who knows? Like, this is an old house, so I'm guessing it's pretty damn simple, whatever the loads are.
Well, it's all stone. It's not stone veneer. It's stone, eave.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
from
plate to eave. So
Yeah.
And we've got a picture of the joist going into those
There is no
pockets. We've got a picture of the joist going into those pockets. It's a little blown out. The exposure is a little hot, so but that's what we're looking at in that photo.
look at that chestnut. Look at that chestnut floor
I
there
know
too.
for sure.
How do you know that's chestnut?
You see the bark on it.
Do.
You don't know that's chestnut.
I don't really.
I bet it was.
I think it is.
You
in
can
that
see-
area,
You
in
can
that
see,
era,
you
for
can see
sure.
like 8 inches of the floorboard.
We'll ask him.
Go back. You could see some bark on another one. Go back, Jeff.
And bark means it's chestnut?
That's chestnut bark right there.
Shut up. You don't know what it is.
He's going to tell us it is.
American chestnut used to be like a super prolific tree all through that area.
And it was the perfect thing for construction.
perfect.
Well, that's fine, but
Then the timber barons came down and almost pretty much wiped everything out.
wanna be
And
a-
then the blight got it.
I want to be a timber baron. I
You
want to
should have
be. I
been.
want to be some sort of baron.
You already are.
Am I? I'm a magazine baron.
Yeah.
Yes.
Podcast Baron.
Podcast baron. So what he's got right now is 4x4 post wall. Looks like, essentially.
So I don't like that wide spacing and the 4x4 girder there. I think that's
It's temporary.
yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't criticize it too much, but so
Well,
you're saying take that out, build a stud wall over a proper footing, and then you're good to go.
That's what I would do.
Well, all right. I don't have anything better than that.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
I was going to say you could also do a beam with posts but you'd have to make sure that those posts are going down to footings. I mean, the Patrick's solution is nice because it spreads the load pretty evenly over the slab.
Yeah.
And,
And
this,
then you put plywood on the stud wall and you hang stuff up and
especially since he said he dug down and underpinned the foundation. And from what I can tell from this photo, those footings look freaking deep.
Oh yeah.
So
look at that.
So I'm guessing he could easily drop a stud wall right on there, then spray some spray foam in between all those studs, get a nice little insulation going.
Fireplace.
I think we should talk about like remodeling as a fitness regimen. I've always found that to be my preferred way to stay in shape versus like running or jogging or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I got
yeah.
no patience for that stuff.
It's boring.
It's so boring. And it's like, to what end? You're running nowhere.
I have to say though, when I look at this photo of all these bags of Quikrete stacked on the floor, I'm just like,
So awesome. Do you think he bought the mixer from Harbor Freight?
he better if he's not renting a mixer for this, then he's just
Could have
crazy.
easily paid for that.
This is real.
Harbor Freight
This is
mixer.
real remodeling work, though.
Yeah, that's
Like,
this is not.
This is
Nobody cares this got done.
this
You
is
can't
just-
see it.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Like this is hard work.
He's got a nice house. I think
That
that's
house is
super
gorgeous.
cool.
Yeah, and it's going to be gorgeous.
You're right though. This is real remodeling work. All right. Where are we at, Jeff? All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Save this other question for next week because it's a little bit of a long one. I don't want to get into it. So, that's a wrap for this episode. Don't forget to shoot us a note, fhbpodcast@taunton.com, and help us out with a rating and review on iTunes. Till next time, this is Baron Justin Fink for Rob and Patrick and Jeff saying happy building.